Good morning, everyone. How are you all? Conclude कर दें आज? Shall we conclude? चलो, great. So, finally, the journey of 2 months is about to end. Huh? Almost 2 months. पागल लोग अभी तक शुरू, अभी 2 स्टैंडर्ड बाकी है अपने, उसके बाद थोड़े इमोशनल हो जाना, रो लेना. Miss me, whatever you want to do. हाँ? समोसा, कौन सा समोसा? मैं बोला था क्या? क्या समोसा खाने का है? फेयरवेल पे अनलिमिटेड खिलाता हूं मैं. हो रहा है फेयरवेल तुम्हारा? नॉट हैपनिंग. व्हाई? नेक्स्ट मंथ, नेक्स्ट वीक. बट जब भी हो, नेक्स्ट वीक हो, नेक्स्ट मंथ हो, डोंट फॉरगेट टू इनवाइट मी. हाँ, आई एम ऑलवेज रेडी फॉर द फ्री फूड. ऑलवेज कहीं पे भी चले जाते हैं हम. सेम ना, सेम, अपनी कैटेगरी वैसी है. चलो everyone, let's wind up the last 2 standards. उसके बाद we'll have a little bit of discussion on MCQs and all, and finally we'll wind up the session on a better note, right? चलो, I'm me too. कौन बोला missing you? मैं तेरे को फोटोग्राफ देता हूँ, उसको रख, हर रोज बत्ती ले, ऐसा करके आते हैं. My blessings are always there with you, don't worry. चलो, SA-240, let us proceed with SA-240, everyone. What is the name of the standard? Responsibilities in relation to detection of material misstatements in financial state. देखो, बहुत ही simple chapter है. There are so many different names of this chapter. It may be called as a auditor's responsibilities relating to detection and prevention of frauds in the audit of financial statement, or you can also do the standards name in this way: responsibilities of the auditor in relation to detection of in what? Financial statement. देखो, I hope by the end of today you might be aware of some of the technicalities which you have to start using in your examination. जैसे हम बहुत बड़ी, we have used the word called SAAE. What is SAAE? Sufficient and appropriate audit. We have to start using the word called pervasive, TCWG. These are the various keywords which the examiner will be looking for in your answer. ठीक है? तो what this SA-240 talks about, देखो, SA-240 basically is going to concentrate on 2 types of frauds. What are the 2 types of frauds? One are known as MOA frauds and one are known as FFR frauds. मैं तुम्हें इसका full form बताता हूँ. MOA fraud stands for misappropriation of assets. What is MOA? Of assets. FFR stands for financial fraud, financial reporting. What is FFR? Fraudulent financial reporting. देखो, every organization में there are these 2 types of frauds which you will generally find. One which are in terms of MOA and one which are in terms of what? FFR. जो FFR frauds होते हैं, जैसे let me tell you one thing. Let's say for example, cash related frauds. Suppose under recording of cash or misutilization of the cash or embezzlement of cash, frauds like teaming and lading, these are the small size frauds which are going to be carried out at the operational level of management. Which level of management? is ये जो employees होते हैं या laborers होते हैं, supervisors, foremen, these kind of people carry out MOA kind of frauds. The top level management like MDs, CEOs, CFOs, these people carry out the FFR frauds because financial reporting is the prime responsibility of whom? Management. Financial statement preparation and presentation is also the prime responsibility of management. They have the master key of their financial statement. So FFR frauds are generally carried out by whom? Top level management. And ये जो MOA types of frauds are being carried out by whom? Lower level management. First of all, understand this way. Second thing, there are so many reasons due to which the frauds may take place. There are basically 3 FRFs we have to do, not FFRs. when I'm using the word called FFR, it means fraudulent financial reporting. But when I'm using the word called FRF, I'm talking about fraud risk factors. What I'm talking about? Fraud risk factor. So याद रखना, FFR stands for fraudulent financial reporting. FRF stands for fraud risk factors. So fraud risk factors are the reasons why the company does FFR. Are you getting the point? So FRF is the reason why the company does what? FFR. What I'm trying to tell you? Try to explain me now. FRF is the reason why the companies do FFR. What does that mean? If fraud risk factors are the reasons why the company indulges itself into what? Fraudulent financial reporting and MOA types of frauds. तो मेन चीज अपने को कोर समझना है. We have to understand the root cause of the frauds which are going to take place in the organization. So what is the major root cause? Causes are known as FRFs, fraud risk factors. So we are going to do this standard in such a manner so that you will be able to absorb what this standard is trying to tell you. Basically, the idea behind this standard is to make you understand that when you will enter the client's place, when you will get like graduated from our CA course, when you will become the professional, some of you might be going into the employment, but some of you might be definitely setting up your own practice. So you should know that in which way the client carries out the fraud. So for that purpose, we are doing this standard. Otherwise, in this standard, it is nothing like 501 or 570 or 580, where there are some rules and regulations which you have to follow. Are you getting the point? So it's a very layman kind of standard. Try to understand what kind of frauds may take place in the organization in terms of FFR and in terms of MOA, and these both take place due to FRF. What is FRF? Fraud risk factors. ठीक है? पहले अपन समझेंगे कि 240 में what is the management's responsibility and whose responsibility? Auditors. So what is the management's responsibility, everyone? Start reading out what they are saying. They are what? Primarily liable to do the same. It means detection and prevention of frauds and errors is whose primary responsibility? Management. Do you remember in the chapter number 1 when we did the objectives of an audit, I told you that this is primarily whose? Management. But if the management fails to do that, it becomes secondarily whose responsibility? Audit. Achha, all of you might have heard about section number 143 subsection 12. Duty to report a fraud. Can you tell me the sentence formation, how we use? If you are an auditor, while doing an audit, if you come across anywhere written, if you, while doing the audit, you detected any fraud. What was the word written? It means we are not responsible for reporting every fraud. We are only responsible for reporting those frauds which will come on my way of doing what? Audit. Because early detection, early prevention and early correction of the frauds and errors was never my responsibility. It was always whose responsibility? Management and TCW. Apni responsibility kya hai? Auditor's responsibility is to only give the which assurance? Reasonable assurance on financial statement as a whole, free from what? MM. What is MM? Material. Apni responsibility hai sirf expression of opinion, so that we can tell to the outsiders and to the users कि according to me financial statements are free or are not free from the material misstatement. So what did you learn from these two sentences? Let me ask you one thing. It is who's primarily responsible? And auditor की responsibility क्या है? Secondary. What is our major responsibility? To give a which assurance? Reasonable assurance on financial statement as a whole, whether they are free from what? Material. He is only expected to be what? Professionally skeptical throughout the year. We are not going to have a suspicious mind. We are only going to have a skeptical mind. What do you mean by skeptical mind? A questioning mind is always better than a suspicious one. We will get suspicious when you will come across. But till that time, I will only keep which mind in my head? Skeptical mind. Next one. If he applied his reasonable skill and care and can prove that his documentations are proper and has conducted audit in a careful manner, he cannot be held liable for non-detection of what? Material misstatement. अब सुनना ध्यान से, यहां पे क्वेश्चन कैसे आता है. सपोज द क्वेश्चन इज देयर इज वन AB and Associates chartered accountants who were the auditors of XYZ Limited. They ended up doing the audit of 31/3/2022 and they gave an unmodified opinion. Which opinion? After few months, when the accountant of the company was verifying the financial statements of books of accounts, he verified that there are some frauds and errors which were apparent from the record. What do you mean the apparent from the record? They were difficult to detect or easy to detect, which were not reported by the auditor. He made a application to ICA to debar that particular firm from being an auditor for the next 5 years. Whether in this case the accountant will be successful or will not be successful. Is this the clear-cut case of negligence on the part of auditor, or it's a case of diligence on the part of auditor? Negligence. It's a case of what? Negligence. अब suppose तुम्हारे ऊपर negligence का charge लग गया. ICAI is doing investigation on you. कि why you did do your audit properly when some of the frauds and errors were easy to detect, easy to report. Why you did not report it? At that point of time, there is only one thing which can take you out from that charges which are against you. That is called these two things. What are these two things? Your proper which one? Documentation. इसलिए 230 is the most important standard in auditor's life. What is 230? Audit document. हम लोग क्या क्या चीजें डॉक्यूमेंट करते हैं बताना मेरे को. Do we document our plannings, strategies, changes, revisions in materiality? Everything we document or not? Do we document all the frauds and errors which we have detected? Do we document our conclusions, procedures and techniques? इसीलिए I kept on saying it to you on every particular chapter कि always remember documentation is a prime important thing. At that point of time, if you will be able to show to the ICAI कि सर ये देखो मेरी documentation, this is how I did my audit. If the ICAI will be satisfied that there was no problem from your end, it was a problem from management's end, then in that case you can survive against those allegations. तो यहां पे कहने का मतलब क्या है? Read this whole total point. एक second. From here, read it. Start reading it from here. He is expected to be what? Professionally skeptical throughout the audit. If you are able to prove that, or second thing, if he applied his reasonable skill and care and can prove that his documentations are what? Proper and has conducted the audit in a which manner? He cannot be held liable for any detection of what? Non-detection of frauds and errors. That is called material mistake. क्योंकि I am not a bloodhound, I am only a watchdog. Do you remember this line? Auditor is never going to act as a bloodhound. He is always going to act as a watchdog. तो ये सारी चीजें तुम्हें ICAI के अगेंस्ट प्रूव करनी पड़ती है. That is the reason peer review takes place on you. Do you remember that? Peer review takes, and what do you show to the peer reviewer? Your documentation. And for how long we preserve these documentations in my office? 7 years. Are you able to interconnect each and everything or not? That is how one standard is connected with what? Another standard. Next point. Factors affecting auditors' inability to detect what? Frauds and errors. Means what are those things which are going to not allow you to detect what? Frauds and errors. Read the heading again. Factors affecting auditors' ability or inability to detect what? Frauds and errors. What is the factor number 1? Frequency of frauds. अगर fraud बहुत बार हुआ है, if it has taken place many times, try to understand it is a very planned kind of fraud. Which kind of fraud? It will not be easy for you to detect the same. तुम सोच के देखो, when you are entering as an auditor, during the year or after the end of the financial year. So can I say that client is having 365 days to carry out a planned fraud and error? Do you have that many days to detect it, or you have the limited days? So are you expected to be too much investigative, or you are only expected to be skeptical? And these frauds are being done in such a manner, in such a planned and logical manner, sometimes it is very difficult to detect also. I'll give you one example. चलो मैं एक छोटा सा example देता हूँ, so that you will get an idea. Now suppose there is one company whose balance sheet is, I think you will be able to understand this. अच्छा, चलो ये भी example छोड़ो, एक और easy देता हूँ. There is one company which is suffering the losses since last 5 years. since last how many years, but it is still ending up paying the dividend to the shareholders without fail. Tell me, did you get any problematic situation here? There is losses since last what? 5. But the company is still successful in paying the dividend to its shareholders. Why a company is still paying the dividend when they are running into losses? बहुत ही सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन है. As an auditor, think like that. कि why a company is paying the dividend even if it's been last 5 years, they're still suffering the losses. To maintain what? Trust and confidence of whom? Shareholders. क्योंकि this company is owned by management or company is owned by whom? Shareholder. If the shareholders will pull off their funds, and when they will pull off? When you will pay them the dividend on time or when you do not pay it? अगर आपने dividend pay नहीं किया, तो the day is not far when the shareholders will pull off their funds. And if the shareholders will pull off their funds, what will happen to the solvency of the company? Will go up or will go down? Company will be on the edge of being what? Insolvent. That is the reason company was paying. अब तुम मुझे बताओ, was it an error or was it a fraud? Paying the dividend when company was running into losses, was it an error or was it a fraud? It was a fraud because it was done unintentionally or intentionally? Intentionally. So fraud is never mean, you might be thinking that, sir, whenever the word called fraud will come, it means something big has happened, means scam and scandal. ये जो मैंने तुम्हें बताया ना, ये था FFR frauds. What is FFR का full form? I told you, fraudulent financial report. These are just the elephant teeth which the company is showing to the outsiders. कि we are regular in payment of what? Dividend. उससे lenders को भी क्या लगेगा? अरे वाह, company is regular in payment of what? Dividend. Let's give the more money to this company. But actually company is full from inside or empty from inside? जैसे बोलते हैं ना, हम हिंदी में एक मुहावरा है कि हाथी के दांत दिखाने के और खाने के और, elephant teeth. Are you getting the point or not? So remember one thing, this is called FFR kind of frauds. Fraudulent financial report. And they are being done in such a planned and sequential manner, it will be very difficult for the auditor to detect it. So what is the first factor, everyone? Frequency of the fraud. What is the second factor? Relative size and amount of the fraud. If I give you a choice, there is one cashier who did a one-time fraud of 15 lakhs and there is one cashier who is doing a everyday fraud of 1,000 rupees. Which one is easy to detect? A one-time fraud of huge amount or everyday fraud of smaller amounts? So what matters? Relative what? Size and amount of the fraud. So what are the two factors which will push you back towards detection of frauds? First one, frequency of the frauds. Second one is what? Relative size. What is the third one? Skillfulness of whom? Originator. How skillful the person is who has done the fraud. अगर उसको अच्छा खासा एक्सपीरियंस है ना 20-25 years का, then in that case it is very difficult. You cannot say that कि auditor is always having a mastermind. There are so many big masterminds who are sitting in the market better than you, who are more good than you in doing the frauds rather than detecting the same. मैंने तुम्हें क्या बोला था? Internal auditor is who? The one who works with the management at the end of the year or throughout the year. Why a company would like to hire a chartered accountant as an internal auditor? If they want to beat the external auditor chartered accountant, they have to first bring in what? Another chartered accountant to behave like the same. समझ में आ रहा है? उसे बोलते हैं skillfulness of what? Originator. The one who originates the fraud, how skillful that person is. That is also one of the factors which will push you back in detection of what? Frauds and errors. Next one, expertise of the person committing the fraud. You can say that skill and expertise. And the last factor क्या है? Level of collusion among the people involved in it. चलो मैं एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल पूछता हूं. What do you understand by internal check system? हमने किया हुआ. What do you understand by internal check system? Allowing the same person to handle the physical custody and the books of accounts, or two separate persons for the both. But still you are able to eliminate the fraud, or you can minimize it. But if they both have joined their hands together, then in that case, possibility of fraud is still there, lower or higher now? उसे हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? Read the fifth point. Level of what? Collusion among the employees involved in it. Did you get the point? These are the 5 factors which makes it impracticable for the auditor to detect what? Frauds and error. Tell me the 5 factors now. Factor number 1 is frequency of fraud, relative size or amount of fraud, skillness of the originator, the expertise of the person committing it, and the last but not the least, collusion among the employees who are involved in it. अभी अपन पढ़ेंगे now what is the auditor's responsibilities when it comes to the fraud. Let's understand the definition of the fraud first. ध्यान से पढ़ना पूरी definition. Read the definition now first. It is a which act? Intentional. That is what makes it different from error. So what is error? Intentional or unintentional? Unintentional. Then what is fraud? Intentional. It is a which act? Intentional act of what? Defrauding the outsider. Who can be involved in that? Management, TCWG, employees, and third party. By using the method of what? Deception. What do you mean by method of deception? Cheating. For taking what? Undue and illegal advantage. This is the definition of fraud which you have to write in the examination. If they will ask you, define fraud. Ab batao, without looking at the board. It refers to the act of intentional act. It refers to an intentional act involved or carried out by whom? Management, TCWG, employees, and third party. By using the which kind of method? Method of deception. To take the which advantage? Undue and illegal advantage. That is what do you mean by what? Fraud. और अगर अपने को error की example देनी है तो if we want to explain the error, it is a which act? Unintentional. Right or not? Next point. What are the 2 types of frauds I told you? FFR, MOA. FFR का full form? Fraudulent Financial Reporting. MOA का misappropriation of assets. Which level of management is involved in which kind of fraud? Top level management is always involved in what? FFR. And lower level of management is always involved in MOA. But should I tell you one common thing? Their FRFs are same. अच्छा मेरे को ये बताओ, let me give you an example. There is one company which is having 20,000 crores of loan pending for renewal in the month of August. In the month of what? August. And they know that this loan will be renewed only when they will show high profitability as on 31/3/2022. Are you getting the point? It means the banker is waiting for what? Audited financial statements of a borrower. If the borrower will show the good amount of profits, the banker will be ready to renew your loan. Now what the company did, company overinflated the stock, overinflated the assets to show the higher profits. Now tell me, it is a which kind of fraud? Is it a MOA fraud? Did you do some stealing and theft, or you manipulated your figures? When you manipulate the figures, that fraud is known as what? FFR. When you manipulate the figures, that is known as what? FFR. But now look at the second example. In your books of accounts, the inventory what you are showing is 35 crores. How many crores? But when I physically inspected it, it is only 32 crores. Tell me, what is the difference you found? 3 crores. Now in the books of account 35 and in the physical inspection it is 32 crores. What is the difference? 3 crores. It is a which kind of fraud? Is it a FFR fraud or it is a misappropriation of assets? इसका मतलब तुम्हारा stock चोरी हुआ है. There is a stealing or theft happened in your what? Stock. So those kind of things where the actually things are getting stolen, they are known as MOA frauds. And those kind of things where you just manipulate the figures of the financial statement, they are known as what? और मेरे को ये बताना, financial statement का responsibility and the total duty is in whose hands? Lower level management or top level management? Top. तो FFR में कौन involved होता है? Top level. और MOA में कौन involved होता है? Lower level. Did you get the point? So what is the full form? Fraudulent financial reporting, and it is known as misappropriation of asset. Example, wrong accounting. Wrong accounting is an example of MOA or it's an example of FFR. दूसरी तरफ example पढ़ो. less quantity, less quality of what? Inventory. मतलब you are buying on paper a high quality inventory, but you are actually buying a which quantity? Which quality? Lower quality. जैसे मैंने तुम्हें गवर्नमेंट ऑडिट में बताया था, ऑडिट ऑफ स्टोर्स एंड स्पेस में. Now, let's say for example, I'm a company and she is the tenderer who is ready to supply me the raw material. मैंने इसको बोला मेरे को A quality raw material चाहिए. Which quality? So she took the money of A quality, but she supplied me what? B quality. But I still approved it. Who is doing the fraud? The supplier or the one who approved it? इसे बोलते हैं misappropriation of assets frauds. क्योंकि it has nothing to do with the financial statements. It has something to do with the assets. So what are the examples of FFR? Wrong accounting, wrong disclosures. And what are the examples of MOA? Less quantity of what? Inventories and misuse of what? Office. मैंने तुम्हें एग्जांपल बताई थी, याद है मेरे ऑफिस की? I found one article and when I opened his bag, I found some 7 to 8 staplers in his bag. So what was that? That was a FFR fraud or that was MOA? सब कुछ फिट हो रहा है वहां पे. That was unintentional or intentional? I don't know what he was about to do with those 7 staplers, but yes, मेरी प्रॉपर्टी तो मिसयूज हो रही थी ना. So there are 2 types of fraud. Did you understand? So tell me the definition of fraud quickly, जल्दी 5 मिनट में. It is an intentional act which is in which who is involved? Management is involved, TCWG is involved, employer. By using the method of what? Deception to take a what? Undue and illegal advantage. Frauds are of 2 types, FFR, MO. What are the full form? Fraudulent financial reporting, misappropriation of asset. Who is involved in FFR? Top level. Who is involved in MOA? Lower level. Tell me the two examples of each. Wrong accounting, wrong disclosures are connected with what? FFR. Under quantity of the inventory and misappropriation or misutilization of company's resources are known as what? MOA frauds. Next one. Note 1. The magnitude of the material misstatement carried out by the fraud is always bigger than what? Errors. ये तुम्हारा correct incorrect question है. Which is more dangerous to the company? किसमें ज्यादा मेहनत लगती है? Where do you think that the most of the brain will be consumed? While doing an error or while doing a fraud? The magnitude of the material misstatement carried out by the fraud is always more powerful than what? Errors. ये हमेशा याद रखना. Second point, frauds not detected by an auditor are more dangerous than committed by an employee. इसे justify करके बताओ. हाँ. देखो सर, सीधी सी बात है. Employee has already done the damage. Are you getting the point? And there might be a possibility that the management was already aware of that, but the management is also not detecting it. Why? Why the management is also not detecting it? Because they have made a collusion with that what? Employee. But at the end of the day, when the collusion kind of things come, whose responsibility goes higher? Auditor. If I'll be unable to detect it, as rightly said by her, people are going to believe whom? Unaudited financial statement or audited? If I'm unable to detect the frauds and errors, it means I'm showing them which kind of financial statements, without any frauds and errors or full of frauds and errors. So it is more dangerous than committing of a fraud. So non-detection of the fraud by an auditor is more dangerous than committing a fraud. So read the 2 lines again. First one, the magnitude of material misstatement carried out by the fraud is always bigger than what? Second one, frauds not detected by the auditor is more dangerous than what? Committed by an employee. अभी अपन थोड़ा सा होराइजन को इंक्रीज करेंगे. अभी तक आई थिंक यू गॉट एन आइडिया कि मैनेजमेंट की क्या रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है एंड ऑडिटर की क्या रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. नाउ वी ऑल्सो गॉट एन आइडिया व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय फ्रॉड. वी ऑल्सो हैव एन आइडिया व्हाट आर द फैक्टर्स व्हिच विल मेक यू इनेबल टू डिटेक्ट द फ्रॉड्स. कैन यू प्लीज टेल मी द 5 फैक्टर्स अगेन? Frequency of the fraud. Second one, size and amount of fraud. skillfulness of what? The originator, expertise of the person committing it, collusion of the employees among each other. It is whose responsibility to detect it primarily? Management. Auditor's responsibility is to express a reasonable assurance. Now, under what circumstances I can be held guilty of gross negligence? If my documentations are improper or proper? Improper. Are you getting the point? That's what you have to make sure that whether you detect the fraud or not, but your documentation should always be what? Proper. Next point. What is fraud? You know. What are the two types of fraud? FFR, MOE. Who is involved in which type? Top level management in FFR, lower level management in MOE. But in both the cases, what is a major reason? Those major reasons are known as FRF. What is FRF? अब ये मेन टॉपिक है. दिस इज अ मेन टॉपिक एंड आफ्टर दिस 240 विल बी ओवर. अब उसको ध्यान से सुनना. FFR is the reason, FRF are the reasons for FFR frauds and they are the same reasons for what? MOA frauds. ये तीन reasons का नाम पढ़ो. क्या लिखा हुआ है? सबसे पहला, एक सेकेंड, इसे हम लोग बोलते हैं प्रेशर्स. पता नहीं क्या लिखा हुआ है, मेरी हैंड राइटिंग है बट मैनेज इट. What is the first one? Pressures. Second one is what? And third one is what? Rationalize. ये तीन वर्ड याद कर लो. What are the three words? Pressures, opportunities, rationalizations. मतलब sometimes you get involved in the fraud due to some pressures on you. Sometimes you do the fraud because you have an opportunity to do it, and sometimes you do the fraud because you think that it is rational to do the fraud. समझ में आया? I think the first two words you understood, third one you didn't. Tell me what is the first reason? You are under a pressure. जैसे मैंने तुम्हें क्या बताया था कि अगस्त में my loan renewal is there and company is under the extreme pressure in the month of June and July कि if the auditor will say that nothing is true and nothing is fair, renewal will take place or will not take place. So they would like to do some FFR frauds. What is FFR? Fraudulent financial reporting frauds. So that auditor should give them the true and fair opinion and ultimately they will get their loans and advances renewed. That is called pressure. That is called what? Pressure. What is the second thing? देखो सर, तुम्हें बहुत ज्यादा भूख लगी हुई है, बहुत ज्यादा भूख लगी हुई है. You have not eaten the junk food since last 2 months. और तुम्हारे सामने KFC का बर्गर रख दिया जाए. So is it a good opportunity to have it or not? या say for example you are suffering from the money shortage और सामने 2 लाख रुपए पड़े and you know that if these 2 lakhs you will snatch, your purpose will be served. तुम्हारा आईफोन आ जाएगा. समझ रहे हो? अपॉर्चुनिटी का मतलब क्या होता है मैं तुम्हें बताता हूं. लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल आई एम द परचेज मैनेजर ऑफ द कंपनी. MD has given me the full rights. Rohit, you only have to invite the tenders. You only have to check the terms and conditions of the tenders. And you are the one only who is going to sign on the selected tender and you are going to place the order and you are the quality inspector. अब बताओ, मेरे पास सुपर पावर्स है? हाँ के ना? Chances of frauds and errors are higher or lower? Because I have an opportunity to do it. If this tenderer is ready to bribe me with 50 lakh rupees saying that रोहित सर आप ये 50 lakhs ले लो, मेरा टेंडर जो सेकंड बेस्ट है उसे क्या कर दो? बेस्ट बेस्ट. समझ में आ रहा है? So that is called opportunity. What is the third one? When you know that you are doing wrong thing, but still you have to do it because you think it is rational to do it. Means तुम्हें लगता है कि वो सही है. जैसे अच्छा तुम मुझे ये बताओ, तुम्हें क्या लगता है रामालिंगा राजू को नहीं पता था कि सत्यम scam is happening, but still he continued to do it from 2000 to 2008? Do you think that the Vijay Mallya was not aware of the fact that he is doing a scam? Did he still do it or not? It is not always the pressure and opportunities. Sometimes it is the what? Rationalization, which also will push you towards doing a fraud. अब जैसे मैंने तुम्हें starting of the chapter में पढ़ाए थे threats. Do you remember 5 types of threats we did? Self-interest threats, अच्छा मेरे को ये बताओ familiarity threat क्या बताया था मैंने तुम्हें? When one of your close relative is working in the organization as an employee where you have been appointed as an auditor. अब तो मुझे ये बताओ, even though you know that कि the client is pushing you towards giving the positive opinion, but you wanted to give a modified. If you will write a modified opinion, your relative will lose the job. Still, you will give a positive opinion. Why? You knew that it is wrong, but you thought that which is more rational here? Should I be more answerable to the society or should I be answerable to my relative? So you thought that yes, my relative is close to me. He is the one whose job I have to protect. So you ended up giving a which opinion? Positive. Instead of what? Negative. Under the pressure of whom? Management. Did you get the point? So ये होता है rationalization kind of frauds. Did you get the point? So what are the three FRFs? Pressure, opportunity. What I'm going to ask you now, try to understand. Do you think that the pressures of top level management and the pressures of lower level management are same? Top level management का pressure क्या होता है? It's the goodwill of the company. It's the brand image. It's the status. Due to that pressure, he does the fraud. But एक lower level employee का pressure क्या होगा? Daughter's marriage, son's schooling. उसके pressures different है, and the top level management के pressures are different. But they both are under what? Pressures. So it means FRFs of both the levels of the management will always remain same. So what are the three FRFs? Pressures, opportunities. अब तुमने हर्षद मेहता स्कैम देखा? तो मेरे को ये बताओ, हर्षद मेहता स्कैम में we came to know that it was very easy for him to make the 4,000 crore rupees in the span of 2 years. How he was able to make it? He just took an opportunity to misutilize the loopholes which were there in the banking system. Am I correct or not? Did he officially do any fraud or it was an unofficial fraud? It was just that he knew the loophole which somebody was not able to understand and he took the use of that. उसे हम opportunity बोलते हैं. That is called what? Opportunity. ठीक है? और last में क्या है? What is the last one? Rational. तो तीनों in the both the levels, all the three things are different, but the things will remain same. तो अगर आपसे कोई पूछेगा, what are the two types of frauds you know? FFR, MO. But in these two types of frauds, what are the common FRFs? Three. What are the three? Rationalization, opportunity, pressures. उसके अलग pressures है, इसके अलग pressures है. उसके अलग opportunities है, इसके अलग opportunities है. उसका खुद का rationalization है, and this one is having his own rationalization. But FRFs will remain same. Clear? Now, when an employee would be motivated to commit a fraud, अब तुम मुझे बताओ, हम लोग कौन से frauds की बात कर रहे हैं? पहले sentence पढ़ो पूरा. Why an employee would be motivated to commit a fraud? We are talking about which frauds? FFRs or MOA? Read the point number 1. Financial obligation or what? Pressure. हो सकता है उसकी EMI cover ना हो रही हो. He has taken a home loan and due to the pandemic situation, his salary was halved. उसकी salary half कर दी गई. But do you think that the banker has also done the EMIs half? Or EMIs are same? But your salary is what? Half. Are you under an extreme pressure to pay your EMIs or not? That is called point number 1. What is the point number 1? Financial obligation or pressure. What is the second thing? Management's unrealistic goals. What is the third one? What do you mean by motivation here? Do you need a lecture in a job? Or do you need a money in your job? सबसे बड़ी motivation क्या होती है? अच्छा मैं तुमसे पूछता हूं, ये बोनस, PF, ग्रेच्युटी क्या होता है? It's a motivation. In today's scenario, in the campus placement, still more than 50% of the chartered accountants would love to join the government organizations rather than private organizations. Why? Sir, government organizations में सबसे बड़ी बात है, तुम्हें इतना ज्यादा employment benefits मिलते हैं ना, you can't even imagine. मैंने भी सेबी इसीलिए ज्वाइन किया था, frankly speaking. ESI मिलता है, PF मिलता है, बोनस मिलता है, गवर्नमेंट क्वार्टर्स मिलते हैं, तुम्हें हर साल PF भी तुम्हारा कंट्रीब्यूट होता है. By the time you will retire from a government organization at the age of 50, you already might have made your corpus of 5 to 10 crore rupees in savings. इतना पैसा कमाते हो when you go to the government. But the problem with the government organization is what? Culture. Their work culture. Their work culture is completely unacceptable. You just have to go there at 10 o'clock, cross your legs, uncross it at 4 o'clock, come back. 31st of every month, one message will come, your salary has been credited. That's it. तुम्हें इतना ही करना होता है. Or by chance, if any work will be there, then you know how the government servants behave. Without any offense to anybody's parents who are the government servants, please, don't take it wrong, but I'm talking about the overall scenario. I'm not talking about your parents specifically. So don't take it as an offense. क्योंकि क्या रहता है, कई बार मेरे पास ऐसे ही होता है, एक स्टूडेंट मेरे पीछे पड़ गया था, सर आप ऐसा कैसा बोल सकते हैं सर, मेरी मदर एसबीआई में काम करते. मैंने कहा मैंने तुम्हारी मदर के बारे में नहीं बोला, मैंने जनरल स्टेटमेंट दी कि गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट्स का जो प्रॉब्लम एटीट्यूड में प्रॉब्लम होता है, दैट आई वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट. तो ही गॉट हर्ट. फिर मैंने बताया, मैंने कहा बेटा सुन, क्या होता है जब समझाना होता है, व्हेन यू नीड टू मेक द पीपल अंडरस्टैंड अ कॉन्सेप्ट, समटाइम्स यू हैव टू टेक द एग्जांपल्स व्हिच आर मोर रियलिस्टिक. तो आई वाज नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट और टारगेटिंग योर मदर, I was talking about the general attitude of the SBI employees because they are from the which sector? Private or public sector? Public sector. What is the next fourth reason, everyone? Dissatisfaction with the work. What is the fifth reason? Management manipulating the employees to do the frauds. उसे बोलते हैं name game. मतलब fraud who is doing? Management. But whose name will come? Employee. क्योंकि even if the employee will be caught, the management will say we only detected it. But actually, who are the culprit who are doing it? Management. And last but not the least, opportunities to commit what? Fraud. So these can be the various reasons why an employee would like to do the fraud. Now, let us understand pressure, opportunities and rationalization in one way. The meaning of that. What is the pressure means? ये वो वाला pressure नहीं है. कौन सा pressure है? It means what? What do you mean by pressure here? It comes a pressure when the management, is under pressure to achieve their what? Unrealistic goals. What do you mean by unrealistic goals? Which are achievable or non-achievable? What do you mean by opportunity? It originates when one knows the flaws and deficiencies in the which system? अब तुम्हें मालूम है कैश डिपार्टमेंट में 4 कैमरास हैं. Out of 4 are not working. Out of all the 4 cameras, 4 are not working and you know that. तो तुम क्या करोगे? यार, let me be one day the cashier. Only one day. And I'll be rich on the same day. So you see it as an opportunity when you know that there are flaws in the internal control system. What is the next thing? Rationalize. When someone possesses an attitude or character to commit a what? मतलब he is proud of his act. He was born to do the fraud. जैसे विजय माल्या, नीरव मोदी, रामालिंगा राजू. These are the people who are born to do the fraud. मतलब their attitude and their character is such that कि they are very much ready to do the which act? This one. For them it is honesty. जैसे मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ. Say for example, some people say that कि why should I pay the tax to the government? क्योंकि government is not spending on me. Is it a rationalized answer? कौन गया बाहर? Air. Right? चलो. Did you understand the 3 points? What are the 3 points, everyone? Pressure, opportunities, rationalization. So what do you mean by pressure? Pressure to achieve which goals? Unrealistic. Opportunity when you know all the flaws in the internal control system. And what do you mean by rationalization? When someone possesses an attitude or character to commit a what? This one. Why FFR happens? What is F? पहले हमने सुना why MOA happens and now we are understanding what is FFR. कौन करेगा? Top level management. Reason number 1. Who is involved? Generally, top level management is involved, which carries out in a very which manner? Logical and planned manner. Becomes very difficult for an auditor to identify. Example, avoidance of taxes, paying the dividend when the company is not in what? Funds. Paying the dividend when the company is not in funds. Did I give you the example of that? And what is vice versa? Not paying the dividend when the company is in funds. That is also FFR. Next one, paying managerial remuneration more than the what limits, permits. मेरे को बताना तुम्हारी एमआर कितनी है, हाउ मच इज मैनेजरियल रेम्युनरेशन यू कैन पे, कल हमने डिस्कस किया था 3%, 6%, 11%. If you want to pay more than that, central government approval. But if you have not obtained it, is it rightful to pay more than 11% or wrong? So that is called FFR fraud. Did you get the point? And obviously, managerial remuneration will be paid by the employees or will be paid by the top level management. That's why these, देखो सर मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ, एग्जाम में they will give you the examples, 7 to 8 examples. You have to identify कि it is FFR fraud or MOF. इसलिए try to understand the clear bifurcation between the two. अगर तुम्हें लगता है कि ये फ्रॉड एम्प्लॉय कर सकता है तो इट मींस दैट इज अ विच फ्रॉड, एमओ. इफ यू थिंक दैट दिस इज ओनली पॉसिबल विद द इन्वॉल्वमेंट ऑफ व्हाट टॉप, तो वो क्या हो जाएंगे, एफएफआर. डिड यू गेट द पॉइंट? नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, टेक्निक्स ऑफ कमिटिंग द फ्रॉड. व्हाट इज द फर्स्ट टेक्निक एवरीवन? ओवरराइडिंग ऑफ द कंट्रोल्स एंड द सेकंड वन इज व्हाट? मैनिपुलेशन ऑफ अकाउंट्स. हु इज हैविंग द कंट्रोल ओवर द इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम? टॉप लेवल मैनेजमेंट. And what do you mean by overriding controls? What do you understand by the term called overriding controls? Overriding controls का मतलब क्या होता? Overriding the controls. अरे इतना तो सिंपल पॉइंट है सर. What do you mean by overriding the controls? हाँ, एक जना बताओ. हाँ भाई, what do you mean by overriding the controls? Anybody from this side? What amma? Crossing it. He is having the power to control the controls. Is it correct? देखो सर, मैंने तुम्हें अभी तो एक एग्जांपल बताया था परचेस मैनेजर का. He is having one thing to do or multiple things, and he knows that if he will override them, override का मतलब if he will surpass them, no one is there is no one in the organization to whom he is answerable. It means you are the ultimate person in the management who has the master file access. Which file access? And you can only do the alterations in the total software with the help of which access? Master file. And you know, and you have the access to that master file. And you know that if you will do any kind of modification or alteration, no one will be able to catch you. That is known as overriding what? Controls. जैसे see, recording the which entries? Fake entries. अब तो मुझे बताओ, टैली का जो मेन मास्टर फाइल है वो किसके हैंड में होगा? Will it be in the hands of the accountant or will it be in the hands of the management? So who will be able to put the fake entries? Management. So it is a FFR kind of fraud. Second reason, adjusting the assumptions and changing what? Accordingly. Concealment of what? Facts. Making complex transactions and altering what? Records and terms. ये सारी चीजें management can do. Who can do? Management. So management can do this kind of fraud. That is called overriding what? Controls. What is the next one? Manipulation of accounts. Manipulation, falsification, alteration of accounting records, inflating or suppressing sales, purchase, income, expenditure and inventories, omitting to record liabilities and misapplication of what? Accounting. अच्छा ये बताओ contingent liabilities क्या होती है? Which are in the balance sheet or off the balance sheet? If you know that your chances of losing the cases are more, what you need to do as per AS-29? You have to start providing it. But if you will provide it, provisions comes out of what? Profits. If the profits will go down, what will happen to your renewal of loans? Connection समझ में आया? Say for example, there was some contingent liability which you knew that you are going to lose. What is AS-29 says? You start providing the provision. Provisions are the appropriation of what? Profits. अगर आप प्रॉफिट से प्रोविजन निकालोगे तो प्रॉफिट्स विल गो अप और डाउन, एंड इन द नेक्स्ट मंथ योर रिन्यूअल ऑफ लोन इज देयर. व्हाट यू वुड लाइक टू डू इन दिस केस एज अ टॉप लेवल मैनेजमेंट? Would you like to provide the provision or you would like to escape from the privilege? Escape. This is called opportunity. This is called rash. अब तुम मुझे बताओ, why did you say this answer? Because you thought it is rationalized not to provide today. Did you get the point? इसे बोलते हैं हम लोग mental pressure, opportunities and rationalizations. And I'm not saying that it only holds up with the top level management. It will be also there with what? Lower level management. But their rationalizations will be different than above. अब तुम मुझे बताओ, it is my daughter's marriage and my monthly salary is 30,000 rupees per month. Are you getting the point? Due to the corona, my 50% of the salary is halved. It means instead of 30, I'm getting what? 50. Or daughter's marriage pay, I have to make sure that 10 to 15 lakhs I have to spend. I went to the management. I asked them, sir, can I get a interest-free loan for the period of 6-7 months or not? From every month, from my salary, you can deduct the bit. Please give me a loan. Management refused me. Now tell me, I am working in that company since last 20 years and I started doing the fraud. Now tell me, think from my point of view, do you think that I'm rationalized in doing that? Yes. उसकी rationalization different है और top level management की rationalization different. But factors will remain same. उसके ऊपर भी pressure है, management के ऊपर भी pressure है, ठीक है? Management also saw the opportunity. He also saw the opportunity. Management also thinks it's justified not to provide. Just now we have done the example, and this cashier also justified to do a fraud. इसे बोलते हैं हम लोग rationalizations. Did you get the point? Did you get an idea? Okay, next one. FRF relating to MM arising from what? FFR. ये पूरा sentence पढ़ना. इसमें सारे abbreviations ही है. FRF relating to MM arising from FFR. Full form में बताना. Fraud risk factors relating to material misstatements arising from fraudulent financial reporting. What are the first factors? Pressures. Second one, opportunity. Third one, pressure. Now I thought that I shall bring you some examples so that as and when you see the question, you should be in a position to answer it. कि pressure के कौन से frauds हैं, opportunity के कौन से frauds हैं, rationalization के. First we concentrated what are FFR and what are MOA. Now we are going to concentrate which belongs to pressure, which belongs to opportunity and which belongs to what? Rational. Pressure related frauds. Read the point number 1. High competition with what? Less margin. अब तो मुझे बताओ जियो और एयरटेल में कौन सा फ्रॉड होगा, मतलब what kind of frauds if they will do, that will be because of which FRF. This is this. What is this point? High competition with what? Less margin. अब Jio can afford to give you the less margin. Suppose Jio is incurring a cost of 399 to pay you, give you the recharge of 420. What is the only margin Jio is earning? This is the cost of Jio and this is what they are offering to the customer. What is the margin? 21. Jio can afford. Why? Because it is backed up by whom? Reliance. But Airtel can afford to give you 399 recharge at 420 or cannot afford? With this much of less margin, do you think that the Airtel can survive or cannot survive? Cannot survive. So Airtel is having a pressure to do the frauds now. समझ में आ रहा है? अब read the point number 1. High competition with what? Less margin is the pressure number 1. What is the pressure number 2? Operational losses and negative cash flow. क्योंकि if you will keep on showing the losses, what about the banks? Will they be ready to renew your loans or they will not be ready? So you have the pressure to convert your negative cash flows into what? Positive. You will end up doing a fraud. Next point. Technological changes. अच्छा ये बताओ, technology environment remains same or it keeps on changing? Keeps on changing. And do you think that technology is easy to afford or difficult to? And if you want to adopt the new technology, you may end up doing a fraud due to the technological changes. Next one. Decrease in customer demand and increase in what? Failures. And last but not the least, changes or new regularities or new accounting. अब तो मुझे ये बताना, इंडियस मालूम है तुम्हें? इंडियस, what you are doing at intermediate level? AS. I think इंडियस तो नहीं है ना तुम्हारे पोर्शन में, AS कर रहे हो ना? फाइनल में फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग में क्या करोगे? क्यों कर रहे हो दोनों? बोथ आर नॉट सेम. बहुत सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन है. इंटरमीडिएट में यू आर डूइंग एएस, फाइनल में यू आर गोइंग टू डू इंडीएस. क्यों कर रहे हो? Some companies in India are still following what? Accounting standards. And some companies, most of the companies are following what? India. तो तुम्हें दोनों तरफ से you have to be an expert. Means you have to be an expert in AS, IndAS as well as SAS. तुम्हें सब में expert होना पड़ेगा. But my problem is how the changes in accounting is a pressure on a company to lead them towards the fraud. तुम मुझे ये justify बताओ. अगर इंडिया में अकाउंटिंग चेंज होती है, हाउ यू विल बी इफेक्टेड टू डू अ फ्रॉड, हाउ यू आर पुश्ड टुवर्ड्स द फ्रॉड. वी आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ, यू आर अवेयर, दे ब्रॉट द डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ऑल्सो. नाउ देखो, इट इज वेरी इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस वन. चेंजेस और न्यू रेगुलरिटीज, दैट इज वेरी इजी. सपोज गवर्नमेंट ने रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशन चेंज कर दी. लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल तुम्हारे हैदराबाद में 30 to 40 वाइन एंड बियर शॉप्स थे, ठीक है ना. एंड नाउ व्हाट हैज हैपेंड कि तेलंगाना गवर्नमेंट मेड अ रूल कि कंजम्पशन एंड सप्लाई ऑफ द लिकर इज अ क्रिमिनल ऑफेंस, यू विल बी पेनलाइज्ड विद अ पेनल्टी ऑफ 25 करोड़. अब तुम्हारे पास 400 करोड़ का स्टॉक पड़ा है लिकर का, और तेलंगाना में यू कैन सप्लाई और यू कांट, यू विल एंड अप डूइंग व्हाट? फ्रॉड्स. तुम्हें ब्लैक मार्केटिंग करनी पड़ेगी. समझ रहे हो? सो दीज आर द वेरियस थिंग्स, दीज आर द वेरियस प्रेशर्स which leads you towards doing what? FFR frauds. Did you get the point? What is the second factor, everyone? Opportunity. What is the opportunity number one? ये तो तुम, you all will agree with me, the best opportunity to do the best kind of frauds is with your what? Related party. क्योंकि subsidiary will never say no to its father. Who is the father? Parent company. So best opportunity to do the fraud is with your which parties? Related party. What is the second one? Abuse of which position? Dominant. अब तुम्हें क्या लगता है कि if the Reliance Industries Limited and Tata or Adani, these three groups put together, go to a Prime Minister of India and they say that कि please change the tax rules. We are unable to pay that much of tax. What the PM is going to do? PM has to change or he will say turn on for. समझ में आ रहा हो? क्योंकि their lobbying power, their financial soundness is too high कि they can run the government. इसे dictatorship बोलते हैं. Good thing is that India में there are so many players like Reliance. अगर Reliance एक ही player होता ना इंडिया में, who is that huge, then in that case India could have turned into another Libya or Syria, Iraq or Iran. समझ रहे हो? Perfect competition is the, India is a good example of which competition? Perfect. आज के टाइम पे अंबानी भी है, अदानी भी है, टाटास भी है, गोदरेज भी है, महिंद्रास भी है. All these people are so huge कि they put together. अच्छा, निफ्टी 50 को निफ्टी 50 क्यों बोलते? Top 50 companies. If those top 50 companies will go up, what will happen to the stock market? Will go. It means they run the organization. Try to understand. They run the economy. Did you understand the point? उसे बोलते हैं abuse of which position? Dominant. You can misuse your dominant position also sometimes for your favor. But when you are using it, it is fine. But when you are abusing it, it means you are doing a fraud. Next point क्या है? Estimates based assets, liabilities, income, expenditure can be what? Manipulated. सबसे ज्यादा fraud provisions में भी होता है. What is provisions, everyone? Actual figures are estimated. Even the auditor also can't raise the finger on you because this is accounting estimates made purely by whom? Management. Is it a good opportunity to do the fraud? What is the next one? Year-end highly complex what? Transactions. And next one is what? Operations in tax haven nations and jurisdictions. तुम देखना इंडिया में जितनी भी बड़ी बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस है ना, उनकी एक एक सब्सिडरी दुबई में, मॉरिशियस में, कुवैत में है, ओमान में है. Why do they have subsidiaries in those countries where they do not have any operations? Only to rotate the money, because those are tax haven nations. वहां पे इनकम टैक्स, जीएसटी ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. You earn 100 rupees, you put the 100 rupees in your pocket. You don't have to pay any taxes to the government, क्योंकि वहां पे गवर्नमेंट टैक्सेस से नहीं चलती, वहां पे गवर्नमेंट चलती है टूरिज्म से। दुबई इज कंप्लीटली बेस्ड अपॉन व्हाट? टूरिज्म। सबसे ज्यादा इनकम उनको टूरिज्म से आती है। They don't need taxes to be recovered from their citizens to run the nation, because their nation is getting run by whom? So they don't feel like putting the taxes in their nations, and that's the reason Indian companies to save. अच्छा, अगर अपन इंडिया में 100 रुपीज कमा रहे हैं, हाउ मच यू आर पेइंग टैक्सेस? 30 रुपीज तो इनकम टैक्स से ले जाता है। फिर अपन कोई भी गुड्स खरीदते हैं तो जीएसटी लगता है, मूवी देखने जाते हैं तो एंटरटेनमेंट टैक्स लगता है, घर खरीदते हैं तो म्युनिसिपल टैक्स लगता है, गाड़ी खरीदते तो रोड टैक्स लगता है, हाईवे पे जाते हो तो टोल टैक्स लगता है। समझ रहे हो? मेरे को ये बताओ, द डे इज नॉट फॉर व्हेन यू हैव टू पे द टैक्स ऑन टेकिंग द ब्रेथ आल्सो। यहां पे मीटर लग जाएगा कितनी बार नर्व्स हुई। आज भैया आज के आपके हो गए 2,36,492 ब्रेथ्स इनटू 10 पैसा ईच, 26,000। यू नेवर नो दिस में हैपन। इंडिया में अगर आप एक एक्चुअल कैलकुलेशन करो, इफ यू आर अ पर्सन earning more than 10 lakh rupees in India, you end up paying 4 to 4.5 lakhs in the form of what? Taxes. आपकी पॉकेट में सिर्फ 55% आता है, 41। तो why should I do the business in India when the Dubai is giving me the tax haven or Dubai is not charging any tax on me? So that's the reason it is an opportunity. And what is the third reason, everyone? Rationalization. What is the point number 1? Known history of violations of securities laws. अच्छा ये बताओ, you all have heard about the Yes Bank? Yes Bank was on the edge of insolvency in 2019. Who came to rescue? RBI. All the banks as well as whom? RBI. If I tell you कि tomorrow Yes Bank is coming with an IPO, would you like to buy the shares? क्यों भाई? क्योंकि you already had a good impression about Yes Bank or bad impression. उसी हम लोग बोलते हैं नॉन हिस्ट्री ऑफ व्हाट? वायलेशंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटीज लॉस। व्हाट इज द सेकंड रीजन, एवरीवन? फेलिंग टू करेक्ट डेफिशिएंट इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम नोइंगली। यू नो दैट कि देयर इज अ पुअरनेस इन योर आईसीएस, बट यू आर स्टिल नॉट रेक्टिफाइंग इट बिकॉज यू वांट टू डू अ व्हाट? फ्रॉड। You know that if you will be caught, you will be tell it is not my problem. It was a poor internal control system. But when you already knew it, did you take the effort to rectify it? No. That is called rationalization. Third one, excessive interest in inventory pricing. मैंने तुम्हें क्या बोला था? Out of all the things which you have read so far, which is the only item which comes twice in your financial state? Inventory. सबसे easy है fraud करना. किसमें? Inventory. Next one, inappropriate means to reduce the tax obligations, and the last one is what? No difference between personal and what? Official expense. याद है हमने section number 143 subsection 1, duty to inquire. Personal expenditure shall not be debited to P&L. So this is what all about you should know about SA 240. तो हमने SA 240 में क्या पढ़ा पहले बताओ? Everything about one word, that is called fraud. Fraud are of two types, FFR, but let it be FFR or let it be MOA. Their FRFs will remain same. Who are the three? It can be the pressures, it can be the opportunities. We have understood some examples of MOA frauds also, and now we have understood the examples of FFR. तो एग्जाम में सिंपल क्वेश्चन आएगा. They may ask you either about pressures, opportunities, and what? If they will ask you this, कि briefly explain the fraud risk factors of the as per SA 240, तो तीनों लिख के आना, उसको explain करना, two examples of each, 2 examples of MOA and 2 examples of what? FFR. This is how you have to meet your requirements of SA 240. चलो लास्ट स्टैंडर्ड करें. ब्रेक कौन बोला? ब्रेक नहीं मिलेगी मेरे को. स्टैंडर्ड भी करना है, फिर तुम्हें बताना भी है मेरे को. अच्छा एक काम करते हैं, 250 का वीडियो सेंड कर दूं तुम्हें तुम्हारे ग्रुप में. 250 का वीडियो ऐसे 250 या क्लास में ही कर लेंगे? कर लेते हैं ना क्लास में, 2 मिनट तो लगेंगे. हाँ जैसा तुम विश करो. अरे रुको पहले मेरे को ढूंढने तो दो, कहां है? ये रे. हाँ, छोटा सा स्टैंडर्ड है, कर लेते हैं, उसके बाद थोड़ा बहुत चर्चा करेंगे, चाय पे चर्चा, ठीक है। 1:15 तक अपनी क्लास है, कैसे भी अभी 1 घंटा पड़ा है, ठीक है ना, आराम से करेंगे। 1:30 तक भी ले लेंगे, चलता है, कल लास्ट डे है। 1:30 2 o'clock तक अगर जाते तो नहीं, आई एम नॉट ओके, मेरी अनदर क्लास इज देयर। चलो, let us start the last, let us wind up our subject with the last topic called SA-250. Just read the name of the standard. Laws and regulations in an audit of, देखो सर, अपने को यहां पे 2 things we have to understand. Auditor's responsibility is to obtain what? Understanding of laws and regulation framework of the client and to check whether he is complying with that framework or not. मतलब कहने का मतलब ये है, laws and regulations is never ever again whose responsibility? Auditors. It is always the responsibility of whom? Manager. अपने को वहां पे जाके ये चेक करना है कि whether the client is following the laws and regulations or not. Can you please read the general responsibility of an auditor? Please read. Obtain what? Understanding of laws and regulation framework of a what? Client, and to check compliance by the entity within that framework. What is my specific responsibility? I have to think about 2 things. अब सुना ध्यान से, those laws and regulations which directly affect the financial statements of my client. अब मैं तुमसे क्वेश्चन पूछता हूं, is income tax act directly affects the financial statements of client? Yes or no? Yes. GST, but PF act? No. अब सुना, जो मैं तुम्हें बता रहा हूं ध्यान से सुनो. There are 2 types of laws which every company follows. One which directly affects its financial statements, and one whose non-compliance affects the financial statement. Again repeating. One which directly affects the financial statement of the client, and the 2 whose non-compliance affects the financial statement of the client. Did you understand the difference? What is the point number 1? Those laws and regulations having a direct effect on what? Financial statement. And what is this? Other laws and regulations which do not have the direct effect on financial statement, but their non-compliance will affect the financial statement. मैं तुम्हें एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल बताता हूं. जैसे टैक्स एक्ट है, इनकम टैक्स एक्ट, Goods and Service Tax Act, they directly affect the client's financial statements because they come in our trading and P&L account and balance sheet. But let me ask you one thing, payment of bonus act. If you are paying the bonus as per the payment of bonus act, till that time it does not affect your financial statement. But suppose you stopped paying the bonus as per the payment of bonus act, then in that case its compliance is affecting you or its non-compliance is affecting. So some are direct affecting laws and some are indirect affecting laws. Did you get the point or not? Some are those laws and compliances which will completely and directly affect your financial statement, and some are those laws and compliances whose compliance does not affect you. What affects you? Non-compliance affects you. Did you get the point? So this is what the major crux which you have to learn. Tell me, what is the general responsibility of the auditor? To ensure that the client should follow laws and regulation, or to check that? To check that. Am I involved in that, or I am involved in examination? So tell me, what is a major general responsibility you have? Obtain the understanding of what? Laws and regulations framework of the client, and to ensure the compliance by the entity within that framework. What are my 2 specific responsibilities, everyone? Laws and regulations which are having the which effect, and what is the second one? Laws and regulations whose compliance is having a direct effect or whose non-compliance? Non-compliance. Next point. Auditor's responsibility is to identify the cases of non-compliance. His responsibility is not to be responsible for prevention. अच्छा ये बताओ, डिविडेंड का सेक्शन मालूम है? Can you tell me within how many days you have to pay the dividend once declared? Within 30 days. Otherwise, section number 127 will apply. Penalty on the company. ये किसको फॉलो करना है? Who has to follow? Company. But who has to check whether it is followed or not? तो मेरा responsibility prevention करना है of non-compliance, or my responsibility is to identify the cases of non-compliance. My responsibility is to identify the cases of non-compliance, not to do the prevention of what? Non-compliance. Did you understand the point, everyone? हाँ के ना? ठीक है? Now read this point. Auditor is responsible, yes, for what? Identification. No for what? Not responsible for prevention. ये पैराग्राफ में कोई डाउट है तो बोलो, क्योंकि if you didn't understand this paragraph, you can't move further. Everybody knew? Everybody knows now what is the auditor's responsibility? Tell me again. What is the auditor's responsibility? To obtain the general understanding of law and regulatory framework of the client and to ensure that whether the client is doing the compliance within that framework or not. What are my two special requirements? To talk about those laws and regulations which are directly affecting the client's financial statement, and also to talk about those laws and regulations which are not having direct impact, but their non-compliance will impact the client's financial statement. What am I responsible for? Prevention or identification? Now, those laws and regulations which are having the direct effect on what? Financial statement. What are the auditor's procedure? What is the point number one? Management के पास जाओ और उनको बोलो, sir, give me the WRL. What is WRL? Did you find any non-compliances? Management is saying yes, 2, 3 are there. Please give me the WRL. What is that? Obtaining the WRL is what? Obtaining the evidence. Second one, why I am obtaining that? To ensure the compliance and obtain WRL that all the cases of non-compliances and suspected non-compliances disclosed to whom? Audit. देखो सर, मैं अपने क्लाइंट के पास जाऊंगा, मेरा जब ऑडिट कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, once my audit is completed, I will simply ask and sit with the management. I will say, sir, I came to know that you have under provided your income tax. It means you are doing the violation of which act? Income. They said we are not sure. मैंने कहा sure you are not sure? उन्होंने बोले yes, we are sure that we are not sure. मैंने कहा do one thing. If you are sure that you are not sure, then make me sure. You give me the surety on one short paper called WRL. What is WRL? देखो, my responsibility was to tell you. You are unsure. What I am thinking is sure. So you make me sure by giving me a WRL. Did you get it? What is WRL का full form? सर ये स्टैंडर्ड ये बोलता है कि तुम्हें ज्यादा नाक पोक नहीं करेगी. You don't have to poke your nose in the management. If they think that कि they did not do any non-compliance, just be aside. Tell to the management, okay, you think that you didn't do the non-compliance? Management is saying, yes, we think that we didn't do the non-compliance. Do one thing, give me what? WRL. So that I can go to my place, put it in my documentation file, my purpose is over. Did you get the point? So tell me, what are the 3 steps? Obtain SAAE. But if you are unable to obtain SAAE on your own, then obtain what? What is the last option always we have? WRL. That all the cases of non-compliance and suspected non-compliance have already been disclosed to audit. Take their signature, take their stamp, and take that evidence and sleep well in the night. But what is the next thing? Other laws and regulations whose non-compliance affects the financial statement, then in that case your workload is different. You have to perform FAP. What is FAP, everyone? Tell them, go to the management and inquire why you didn't follow those laws and regulations. Inspect the correspondence with the regulatory authority. Because when you don't follow the laws and compliances, will you get the notices from the tax department? Inspect those correspondence to identify the cases of what? No. And finally here also obtain what? W. So tell me the 2 cases made 2 different approach which the auditor had. Those laws and regulations which were directly impacting my client's financial statement, what should I do? Obtain SAAE. If that is not possible, take the WRL from whom? Management, and tell them to write कि we have disclosed all the non-compliances and suspected non-compliances to the auditor. Take this signature and stamp. What about those laws and regulations which are indirectly impacting? Perform FAP. What is FAP? Further audit. FAP में क्या करेंगे पहले? Management inquiry. And we will also inspect the correspondence with the which authority? Regulatory. To identify the cases of what? Non-compliant. And finally again obtain what? W. दोनों points में समझ में आ गया? Now the next thing which you have to understand, ये वही same point है, और करके लिखा हुआ है, same point. In case of non-compliances, what you have to do? Read the point number 1. अच्छा ये बताओ, when you are sure that कि yes there is a non-compliance, when you have an evidence or no evidence, ये last topic है, when you have an evidence or no evidence. फिर से पूछता हूं, when you are 100% sure कि client has done a non-compliance, when you have an evidence or when you don't have an evidence? Have an evidence. When you have an evidence कि client has done a non-compliance, which report you would like to issue? हाँ, modified. तो बाकी in detail में थोड़ा बताओगे? 705 we have done. मैं तुम्हें 3 ऑप्शन देता हूं. Listen, there is a non-compliance. You already have an evidence कि there is a non-compliance. I'll give you 3 options. Qualified, adverse, disclaimer. Don't give me the modified word. ये तीनों ही modified है. Qualified, adverse, disclaimer. When you already have a proof कि the client has done a non-compliance. Adverse or qualified? Why not qualified? हाँ तो qualified में भी होता है. It depends upon qualified or adverse. Depends upon M and P. भूल गए क्या? Materiality and pervasiveness. If that evidence is material, but if that non-compliance is material but not pervasive, which report you will give? And if that non-compliance is material as well as what? Pervasive. Then in that case, chalo, there is a company of 4,000 crores of turnover, tax evasion of 20,000. There's a tax evasion of what? 20,000. अब यहां पे तुम एडवर्स दोगे, you will say that company is untrue and unfair just because of 20,000. So this fraud of 20,000 is what? Material but not pervasive. So which one you will give? Qualified. But a 4,000 crores turnover company is doing a evasion of tax of 200 crores. Now it is material as well as pervasive. अब आप कौन सी रिपोर्ट दोगे? Adverse. This is the case number 1. Case number 2. You don't have an evidence, but you are suspecting that कि there is a fraud. अब क्या करेंगे? Qualified or disclaimer. If that non-availability of the evidence is material, but not pervasive, you will give the which one? Qualified. But if it was material as well as what? Pervasive. Then in that case you will give what? Disclaimer. खत्म हो गया स्टैंडर्ड. 250. 250 किसके बारे में था? बताना मेरे को. हाँ बात नहीं करना, पहले रिवीजन कर लो. 250 किसके बारे में था? 250 का नाम बताओ. स्टैंडर्ड नंबर. Consideration of laws and regulations while doing the audit of financial statement. What is the auditor's responsibility? We understood here. Auditor's responsibility number 1 general, number 2 special. General में I only have to understand the legal and regulatory framework of my client and to ensure that the client is doing or compliance within that framework or not. What are my 2 special inquiries? 2 special responsibilities. I have to check those laws and compliances which are directly affecting the client's financial statement and those laws and regulations which are not directly but their non-compliance is affecting the financial statement. What about those laws and regulations which are directly affecting the client's financial statement? I'll obtain SAAE on my own. If that is not possible, I will go to the management, communicate with them and obtain what? WRL. On the WRL, what will be written? That they have disclosed all the cases of non-compliance and all the cases of suspected non-compliance to whom? Auditor. Second, if it is those non-compliances which are affecting the financial statement, then I will do the inquiry with the management, and I will also inspect the documentation between the management and regulatory authority, and finally obtain what? WRA. And last, may please tell me reporting. When you will report qualified and adverse, and when you will report qualified and disclaimer. When you have an evidence that there is a non-compliance, and when you don't have an evidence there is a non-compliance. Which two where? Qualified, adverse. When you have an evidence, and when you don't have an evidence, when to qualify, when to adverse? When the non-compliance done by the management was material but not pervasive, तो क्या करेंगे? Qualify. Or when it is material as well as pervasive, adverse. When the non-availability of the evidence was material but not pervasive, qualified. But when it was material as well as pervasive, तो अभी तुम लास्ट में पता क्या करोगे? अभी तुम मेरे को सारे स्टैंडर्ड लाइन से बताओ. मैंने तुम्हें डे 1 को प्रॉमिस किया था, याद है कि लास्ट डे को 200 से लेके 710 तक स्टैंडर्ड नंबर्स with the standard names. You will tell me. If you remember, I told you that on the day 1 कि leave the standard numbers and standards on me. Last day को I will ask you everything at one point of time. अब चुपचाप सब आंसर देना, देखो मत, हाँ लिखना भी मत. What is 200? और अपने को एक एक थप्पड़ मारते जाना अगर तुम भूले तो. 200 is overall. 210, agreeing to the initial audit engagement terms, that is called audit engagement letter. 220 क्या था? Quality control. 230 audit document. 240 तो आज ही किया हमने. Auditors responsibilities relating to frauds in the audit of what? Financial statement. 250 अभी किया हमने. Consideration of laws and regulations in the audit of financial statement. 299 joint audit of financial statement. 300 क्या था? Planning and performing the audit of financial statement. 315 identification and assessment of risk of material misstatement in the audit of what? Financial statements. What is 320? Audit materiality. राइट और नॉट. फिर हमने 400 सीरीज अपने पोर्शन में नहीं है. 500 सीरीज. व्हाट इज 500? ऑडिट एविडेंस. 501 स्पेशल कंसीडरेशंस. 505 एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन. 510 ओपनिंग बैलेंसेस. व्हाट इज 510? ओपनिंग. 520 एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स. 530 ऑडिट सैम्पलिंग. 540 accounting estimates है, but that is not there in your portion. 550 related party. 560 subsequent events. Which events? Subsequent. 570 going concern. 580 written representation letter. 610 using whose work? Internal auditor. 700 क्या था? Forming an opinion and reporting on financial state. 701 CAM, key audit matters. 705 modifications in the independent auditor's report. 706 EMP, OMP. And 710 last, corresponding figures, comparative financial statements and comparative information. सेक्शन सारी याद है कंपनी ऑडिट के? मेरे को पता तुम्हें याद है, बताओ. 138 किसके बारे में था? 139 अपॉइंटमेंट रोटेशन कैजुअल वैकेंसी. ठीक है. 140 रेजिग्नेशन रिमूवल. 141 एलिजिबिलिटी क्वालिफिकेशन डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन. 142 क्या था? रेम्युनरेशन. 143 सबसेक्शन 1 से लेके सबसेक्शन 15 तक ऑल वर व्हाट योर ड्यूटीज. उसमें 143 सबसेक्शन 1 क्या था? ड्यूटी टू इंक्वायर. 143 सबसेक्शन 2 ड्यूटी टू एक्सप्रेस एन ओपिनियन. 143 सबसेक्शन 3 OLRR अदर लीगल रेगुलेटरी रिक्वायरमेंट्स. 143 subsection 4, duty to verify the accounts of, नहीं sorry, duty to give the negative, duty to give the reasons in case of which report, modified report. 140 subsection 5, subsection 6, subsection 7, audit of government companies, supplementary audit, test audit. मैंने अभी तुम्हें रिसेंटली गवर्नमेंट ऑडिट में बताए थे, राइट और नॉट? 140 सबसेक्शन 8 एंड सबसेक्शन 9 एंड 10. चलो मैं बताता हूं. 143 subsection 8 is duty to verify the accounts of branches. What is 9 and 10? Whenever you do the audit, you always have to follow SAs. What is SA? Standards on audit. 11 तो पता ही होगा, 12 भी पता होगा. 12, 13, 14, 15 सिर्फ ड्यूटी टू रिपोर्ट अ फ्रॉड. 144 क्या था? 145 राइट टू साइन एन ऑडिट रिपोर्ट. 146 ड्यूटी टू अटेंड द मीटिंग. 147 penal section and 148 which records for audit of cost records, cost audit. And what is 177? Audit of audit committee. चारों याद है? 21 to 1 बताओ जल्दी. अरे ऐसा नहीं होता. 21 to 1. चलो मैं पूछता हूं. क्लॉज नंबर 7. भाई मेरे को भी तो एश्योरेंस चाहिए ना ऑन द लास्ट डे वेदर व्हाट आई टोल्ड यू इज इनसाइड योर हेड और नॉट. ठीक है ना? तो ये बताओ व्हाट इज क्लॉज नंबर 2, क्लॉज नंबर 16 एनबीएफसी, क्लॉज नंबर 12 निधि कंपनीज, क्लॉज नंबर 11, क्लॉज नंबर 20 सीएसआर कॉर्पोरेट सोशल रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, क्लॉज नंबर 18 resignation of the statutory auditor, clause number 1 8 unrecorded income. 8 is what? Unrecorded. Clause number 13 related party transaction. तो भैया तुम्हें कारो भी आता है, ठीक है? So that was all from my side, right? I hope I met your expectations, right? It was lovely teaching you all. ठीक है? अभी एक सेल्फी तो बनती है भाई. तो अभी अपन क्या करेंगे? सुनो अभी अपन क्या करेंगे? हाँ सेल्फी तो खींचेंगे.